Dear students, welcome to my classroom of Modern Chinese History. Today, I am going to give you an idea about gender historiography in China. In modern Chinese history, how gender plays an important role. In modern Chinese history, we teach various topics, and those topics help our students to understand the evolution or the transformation. We talk about the Chinese culture, the Chinese society, politics, economy, and also gender. When we talk on gender, it's important for us to know who were the eminent personalities in modern Chinese history who has made China a successful country in terms of politics, society, culture, and economy. Behind the formation of China as a communist country, many people they contributed to a great extent. Amongst them, we have one lady. She is known as Madam Chiang Kai-shek. So, let's start the lecture with an idea of a lady who has changed the politics of modern China with her deliberations, with her knowledge, and also she was perhaps one of the greatest ladies of 20th century who supported her husband, the political leader Chiang Kai-shek, to a great extent. Soong Mei-ling was the first and certainly the most famous woman of her day to break through the barriers of traditionally male-dominated Chinese society. By using extraordinary intelligence and eloquence to charm the members of the United States Congress into giving financial support and armaments to her country, she was an important part of the reason influential Americans supported China during Second World War. She became known internationally as Madame Chiang Kai-shek, but was a force in her own right. Although she never held an official position during her extraordinary long life, she lived for 105 years, one that spanned 3 centuries. She played an important diplomatic role for China during Second World War and afterward, challenging the traditional role of women in Chinese society. Soong Mei-ling was educated in the United States from 1908 to 1917. When she graduated from Wellesley College and was thoroughly Americanized. In 1927, she married Chiang Kai-shek and she helped him to introduce Western culture and ideas and worked to publicize his cause in the West. With her husband, she launched in 1934 the New Life movement, a program that sought to halt the spread of communism by teaching traditional Chinese values. In 1936, Chiang Kai-shek was taken captive by Zhang Su-liang, a warlord who believed the nationalist government should stop fighting China's communists and instead concentrate on resisting Japanese aggression. Soong Mei-ling played a major role in the negotiations that led to his release. During Second World War, she wrote many articles on China for American journals. And in 1943, during a visit to the United States, she became the first Chinese and only the second woman to address a joint session of the US Congress, where she sought increased support for China in its war against Japan, which is known as Sino-Japanese War. Her efforts resulted in much financial aid, and Soong Mei-ling so impressed the American public that until 1967 her name appeared annually on the US list of the 10 most admired women of the world. In the mid-1940s, civil war broke out in China as nationalists and communists battled for control of the country. Chiang Kai-shek's forces were defeated in 1949, and Soong Mei-ling and her family moved to Taiwan, where her husband established his government. Still highly influential, she continued to seek support from the United States, and her efforts helped sway the US government's policy toward China and Taiwan. After Chiang Kai-shek's death in 1975, Soong Mei-ling moved to New York, where she lived in semi-seclusion. Following the death in 1988 of Chiang Kai, Chiang Kai-shek's son from his first marriage, and the president of Taiwan, she briefly became involved in Taiwanese politics. But by that time, her influence had greatly diminished. Her published works include This is Our China, which was published in the year 1940, The Sure Victory, which was published in the year 1955, and 2 volumes of selected speeches. One biography of the Soong family was published in 1986, and several biographies have since been written about little sister in her role as Madame Chiang Kai-shek. But the book by historian and writer Zhang Chang, Big Sister, Little Sister, Red Sister, 3 women at the heart of 20th century China, reveals the fascinating intertwined story of the 3 sisters for the first time. Here I would like to mention Madame Chiang Kai-shek. She belonged from a family where the people they had a great interest in politics. One of her sisters was the wife of Sun Yat-sen. They were 3 sisters, and all the sisters were very much politically aware. I'm talking about Zhang Chang. She is best known for her 1991 international bestseller, Wild Swans, 3 Daughters of China, which explored her own family history in China through the 20th century. Chang researched previously unused documents from archives, including personal letters by the sisters, to chart their fascinating personal and political lives. Though Taiwan's Vice President Annette Lu of the Democratic People's Party praised her as a great woman, many more in Taiwan excoriated her for her part in Chiang's repressive regime and her luxurious lifestyle. Interestingly, reaction from the mainland, where the Chiangs have been somewhat rehabilitated for their resistance to Japan and opposition to Taiwan independence, was much more favorable. Soong Mei-ling was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding women of the 20th century. She combined traditional loyalty to her husband with a self-styled feminism and a determinism to be her own person as a new woman in a new China. Long before other public women, she earned a place as an equal with men at the highest levels of leadership. Possessed of legendary charm and beauty, she wielded the English language as an artistry and rhetorical power that few could match and none could surpass. She overcame lifelong physical and mental illnesses through sheer determination, perseverance, and raw courage. Despite repeated personal, political, and national defeats, she never gave up. From her youth until her death, through stages of gradual growth, punctuated by decisive encounters with God, she never faltered in her profession of faith in Christ. Now I would like to go for the quiz on Madame Chiang Kai-shek. My quiz for my students is: she was the wife of Mao Zedong, number 1 option, number 2 Sun Yat-sen, and number 3 Chiang Kai-shek. I'm repeating, she was the wife of, the option number A is Mao Zedong, option number B is Sun Yat-sen, and option number C is Chiang Kai-shek. The right answer is she was the wife of Chiang Kai-shek, and she was internationally known as Madame Chiang Kai-shek. Obvious inconsistencies in her conduct must be evaluated in the light of the pressures under which she lived for decades. The demands she faced as wife of a head of state, traditional Chinese concepts of leadership, what appears to have been the nominal Christianity of her childhood religious environment, chronic and debilitating illnesses, and the personality weaknesses that would challenge any Christian. In the words of one person who knew her, she was a grand lady. During the heyday of her popularity in the late 1930s and early 1940s, Madame Chiang ardently delivered speeches and wrote articles for both Chinese and international audiences. In May 1942, she wrote an essay for The Atlantic entitled China Emergent, which starts by decrying the calamities of war, particularly the brutal exploitation of China by Japan. In asserting China's equality among nations, she condemned past exploitations of China by Western countries. She recalled the Qing dynasty, the monarchy that ruled China before the Republican government's revolutionary foundation in 1912. Powerlessly yielding to Western countries' demands for opening 5 trading ports, Shanghai, Canton, Ningpo, Fuzhou, and Amoy, where they enjoyed extraterritorial rights. America and Britain have already shown their consciousness of error by voluntarily offering to abrogate the incautious system of extraterritoriality that denied China her inherent right to equality with other nations. Madame Chiang wrote. She then denounced unjust systems, such as unfair wealth distribution that prevailed globally. However, she stressed on China's people's reluctance to pursue communism, relating it to authoritarianism and the absolutism of the single-party system. China, Madame Chiang dubbed, is the Columbus of democracy, as popular vote conferred power upon 3 Chinese emperors in the ancient times. Long before the rise of Western democratic thoughts, Madame Chiang stated, the Republic of China pursues a kind of socialism embedded with democratic principles through the three principles of the people by San Min Chui, a set of ideologies: nationalism, people's rights, and people's livelihood, coined by the country's founder, Sun Yat-sen. The three principles of the people, the First Lady asserted, is no more pale reflection of Western socialism. Here I would like to say her representation of her own culture and her own political thoughts are brilliant. How she tried to contextualize the Chinese politics or the political thoughts in the light of Western socialism definitely attracts our attention. She tried to say that what Sun Yat-sen tried to preach and the ancestors of China, they were highly influenced with the ideals of Confucius, who was known as one of the great scholars of the world, who belonged from the ancient China. So, for her, the Western democratic thoughts were nothing new in the Chinese soil, as the Chinese people, they were already had an idea about democracy, and also they were very much liberal and emancipated so that they could be able to understand each other and support holistic development. That's why the New Life movement, which she started with her husband, Chiang Kai-shek, was an attempt to help the young generation to go back to their roots, so that they should think about it like before accepting communism, they should also have an idea that in their own country they have similar kind of ideology which has an age-old legacy. Madame Chiang Kai-shek's ideas perhaps were biased if we would like to think from the perspective of social sciences, but how she was trying to justify herself and the ancient Chinese society and culture, that is really worth of appreciation. In social sciences, we have individualistic ideas, and there is no harm to express your ideas, and that would also help us to cherish freedom of speech. If we think from that perspective, then we cannot say she was biased. Perhaps she was also trying to situate herself and the ideology of her husband in this cross currents where China was very much eager to accept communism at the cost of rejecting her own traditional values. So we need to understand this psyche or mentality of Madame Chiang Kai-shek before assessing or evaluating her contributions in the modern Chinese history. Being a woman, definitely she was a trendsetter. If we would like to find out the position of women in ancient Chinese society, that was not that much impressive, I must say. Even in the old regime or under the warlords, the women, they never had a respectable position. They were confined in their own households. But Madame Chiang Kai-shek, she broke those chains and she was really emancipated. She was educated in US, but still she was very much respectful for her own culture and tradition. Perhaps we may say that she was an example of a traditional modernizer who tried to carry both the streams of thoughts, her love and respect for her own culture and tradition, and also how she tried to enlighten her country with the help of Western education and Western knowledge system. For that particular reason, I think like we should give her a proper place in historiography. It's very difficult to get references of the women who were powerful and had a political role in the society. And if we talk about South Asian history, yes, we have few examples. Amongst these examples, Madame Chiang Kai-shek, she was one of them, who talked about not only the emancipation of her country, also the emancipation of the human beings. It was not very clear that what were her views on gender neutrality, but she talked for the liberation of the humans who should follow the traditional Chinese values and ethos. Although she admitted that Chinese democracy will undoubtedly be influenced by the Jeffersonian views of equality, of opportunity, and the rights of the individual, the Chinese system will not merely imitate that of America's and will serve China's needs and traditions. Madame Chiang concluded that upon the Allied powers' victory in Second World War, there should be peaceful governance of people of all races. Through her performance as a vocal and astute First Lady, Madame Chiang Kai-shek exposed to the world a distinct persona of Chinese women. Madame Chiang's traits as a political leader's wife were similar to those of American First Ladies, such as President Woodrow Wilson's wife, Ellen Wilson, who advocated for social causes, and President Warren Hardinge's wife, Florence Hardinge, who spoke frequently in public, noted Daniel Paul Linton in his University of Minnesota dissertation. Other traits of US First Ladies, such as overt support of their husbands, administrative policies, and working with the media, were also embodied by Madame Chiang. Linton wrote that because of similar efforts on her part, Madame Chiang Kai-shek was held in the United States as the First Lady of China. We need to remember that Chiang Kai-shek was not familiar with the language English. Madame Chiang Kai-shek, she made his causes popular and international, so that Chiang Kai-shek would be able to get the support of the countries which were at that time superpowers. Especially, Chiang Kai-shek's popularity in America was very much depended on how Madame Chiang Kai-shek, she talked about the plight and the sufferings of the Chinese people, and also how her husband was trying to save or protect the country. The international support or sympathy which Chiang Kai-shek received all were the outcomes of the efforts taken by Madame Chiang Kai-shek. She was a lady with intelligence, a beauty with brain, and also politically empowered, and tried to not only help her husband but also the nation. Her presence was really important in the Chinese history to estimate or understand how we can politically define gender in social sciences in Chinese history if it could be our case study. Madame Chiang Kai-shek can be compared with Indira Gandhi, who was the first woman prime minister in our country. And also, she could get equal importance with the other powerful political personalities who were ladies in the world like Margaret Thatcher and others. So her presence was very much enlightening and helped China or modern China to get a new definition in the world history or in the field of international relations. Finally, I would like to conclude by saying it may true that Madame Chiang may be striven to become a prominent political figure apart from her husband, as Rosen argued. Yet, despite her supposed motives, Madame Chiang had nonetheless ameliorated the stigma towards Chinese culture in the West through her rhetoric. She tried to speak in favor of her country, but she didn't take that much rigorous efforts to make people understand the values of her culture and civilization. Perhaps it was not the right time to do so, but she did the groundwork. That's why she could be always remembered as one of the greatest women personalities of modern China, who was a plethora of both tradition and modernity. Thank you.